Okay, Arkansas versus Alabama had to be probably one of the best games of this draft cycle. When you factor in the high scoring affair, 117, 115, it just felt like an NBA game with the pace, the style of play. I mean, Alabama, we all know that that's kind of the closest thing to an NBA system in college. But you factor in the prospects who we got to see, Labaron Philon and Darius Acuff both having stellar performances mixed in with, Malik Thomas, who had a really good first half, Amari Allen, um, Billy Richmond did some things out there as well that were really good. Like it was just a great game, fun, double overtime thriller. But I really want to dive into some of these prospects, and just because we haven't really talked about them a whole lot here on this channel, and both of these guys I think have been doing stellar stuff this whole year. Um, Darius Acuff, he without a doubt had probably the best performance, but I want to talk about the winning side first and give some respect to Labaron Philon. Um, Now, Labaron Philon is a guy who he had the chance to go in the draft last year as a freshman, playing alongside, Mark Sears on a really good Alabama team. And now he came back and he's taken a step offensively. Like the usage is gonna, but I feel like he's been really solid with the usage that he has. And if you would ask me if Philon would have kind of taken this leap, I probably wouldn't have said that he'd be performing this well. Had you asked me last year, because I feel like as a scorer, he's improved as a shooter. And today in the game against Alabama, I feel like he also showed his improvement as a passer and as a playmaker. Because I think one of the things with him is it just feels like when he has his eyes set on putting the ball in his hoop, that's all he really wants to do. He had 7 assists, 2 turnovers. It just felt like a really mature performance from him. He was drawing double teams, traps, and he was just making the right play out of it. I think we saw that at the end of the game in the play with Mallet to the corner. Now, one thing with him is it still feels like his processing can be a little slow, because one thing I do recall on that play, right, with Mallet at the end of the game for the dagger is that Arkansas had to put in one of their bigs who had played maybe like 15 minutes the whole season, I think is what they said. And everybody who watches basketball knows you're going to target that big who looks like he can't really move his feet. And I'll show the play here, but the big actually did a pretty good job of moving his feet right. And you can see Philon's kind of trying to attack him, probe, and see if he can get to a shot, whether it's at the rim or maybe a step back three here. But that's when the big man recovers back to his man, and Brazil sees this, so he has to slide up from the corner off of Mallet to get onto Philon, and that creates a little confusion here. But notice how long it kind of takes Philon to realize that Mallet is open in the corner. Again, he still made the right play at the end of the day, got the dagger, but it's little things like that that you want to see him be able to recognize a little bit faster, from a pure playmaking perspective. Like I said, Philon has taken a really big leap in that lead guard role for Alabama, and I still don't really know if I see him being the number one scoring option on a championship team or a contending team for that matter. I'm not trying to say all that as high as I am on him, but uh, him being able to make plays like that quickly, I think it just helps the flow of the offense a little bit better. And for me, who I kind of see him as a secondary ball handler on a team where, you know, maybe there's a guard who can already kind of draw a little bit of attention or get the defense off balance. I think him adding that quick playmaking ability and capability, I think that only helps his upside for the long term. But yeah, man, Philon yesterday, he showed everything offensively that's something to be intrigued about with him. I mean, the scoring, the playmaking. I haven't talked a whole lot about the scoring, but he did a good job, I feel like, of, just catching the defense off balance. At first, it felt like they were kind of hesitant to get up to him on ball screens. So he did a good job of kind of just toying with the defense, taking the three when it was there. Then obviously, he's always going to get down to the hoop, finish at the cup. It was a great performance from him, man. Like the defensive stuff the defensive stuff, there wasn't really a whole lot, but I think he showed a lot last year to let you know that there's some real upside there. Once he does get into the NBA, even though he is like what 6'3", but yeah, I think Philon, he just showed that his combination of slashing ability with the playmaking, and I think that's ultimately what propelled Alabama to the win. Now I want to get into Acuff, right? Because he had 49 points yesterday, but let's say he had 50. Darius Acuff had 50 points yesterday, right? And he's a guy who I think has been a polarizing prospect for kind of a ton of reasons. Like, you go back to high school, right? He was a guy who he was very ball dominant. I don't think the shooting numbers were as good as they are now. Like, he's an above 40% three-point shooter. And I don't think the free throw numbers kind of indicated that that he had this type of scoring leap brewing, or shooting leap, I should say. And I think with him being maybe 6'3", I think there's also a lot of the questions defensively. But I think the overall stuff he's shown as a shot maker is just absurd. Like, he already had the ability to come in and shoot off the dribble, but you factor in a lot of the catch and shoot stuff that he has now, I think it just creates a whole new world for Darius Acuff, and it does show he can be an effective player off the ball. And I think it's even shown in his performance yesterday as well. Like, he wasn't somebody who was. It didn't feel like he was pressing for the issue most of the game, right? It felt like he was kind of taking the defense and what was coming to him. Because Alabama, if I'm being honest, it felt like in the first half especially, a lot of the defense that they were playing on him, it just felt kind of soft. And like, I know they worked in zone for a little bit, but they were kind of just like, we'll let you shoot from the outside and you kind of have to prove it. I think Nate Oates did say post game that wasn't really the intent, and they were going to try to, you know, put a little more pressure on him. But yeah, he kind of just punished the soft defense, and he didn't have to go out of his way to get his own, And that's something that I think has kind of been prominent with Acuff throughout this whole season. It doesn't feel like it's inefficient hoops, when you're watching him, or, even when he is getting these big games. It does just feel like he's kind of taking what's there, or he's creating the issue in an effective, he's creating rim pressure in an effective way, I should say. So yeah, like, there just comes a point where you have to respect the shot making ability and what he's showing, and like, especially the fact that he's doing it at all three levels. I know the mid range, the mid range thing is kind of tough because that is always a harder thing to kind of project. I know a lot of stars have it, but I think Acuff having that ability, him being able to hit that shot, I'm not gonna knock him for it. It seems like a real part of his game that can be an effective asset at the next level. And then the other thing that also impressed me about Acuff and really makes me think, like, okay, like, yeah, he's worthy of a lottery pick next year, is just the fact that you factor in who is guarding him, right? He had Amari Allen on him, who's another first-round prospect potentially this year in the draft. Now, Amari, I'm not going to say he's like the quickest defender laterally, but he's a bigger guard and somebody probably akin to what he would be seeing at the next level. And he was kind of frying Allen. Just straight up, he was cooking him every time. Mallet was on him a few times too, was also kind of another bigger player, and he was punishing them. Like, just simple. So I think when you have somebody who's routinely night in and night out making effective plays as a scorer, you have to take note of that. And I can understand some people who question whether this stuff is real, but I'm choosing to buy it. Maybe he's not going to be a 40% shooter in the NBA, but you even think like 36, 37, that's not horrible in my eyes, especially for somebody who would probably be like him. I could kind of see being like a higher volume guy, like, even if he is coming off the bench, maybe. And like, it's not like he's a complete, he's a score first guard, but he's a guy who can make the right read too. And I think we saw that quite a bit yesterday as well. Like, he had 2 assists early for a good portion of the game. But then once we kind of got to crunch time, it felt like that was when he was really finding the low man, making the dump offs, Some of those assists, I will say, though, it was just a skip pass to Billy Richmond in the short corner. So take with that what you will. But again, he's averaging 6 assists on the year, so it's not like this is a guy who can't make reads at all, whether they might be, simple or whatever. I just think that the scoring with some of the playmaking stuff, it's worthy of taking a first round pick on it. It is worthy. Now, I will empathize with some of the Acuff doubters in terms of like him not being the most active guard defensively, and like if he's not scoring, what else is he doing? That type of thing. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of willing to just buy in and kind of see where it takes us. Because I feel like at the end of the day, what Acuff provides, that could still be very valuable as a backup point guard. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he's not. Maybe there's a world where he doesn't end up being like your star point guard on like a championship team or a contending team. But I think him as a backup is really, it could still provide a lot of value. Just having that scoring punch, a guy who can make reads. So I think 49 points, and this is another performance in a long list of games that have shown he can really ball out, man. He can really play.